Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and Happy New Year, everyone. Here it is, January 1st, 2025, the beginning of a brand new year, and I hope it's going to be an awesome one for everybody. Today, I am delighted to be starting a brand new program that I am calling MagnifEssence in Motion. Now, you may recall, I used this particular time slot, I used to do a program called Life Mastery TV, and I've been doing that for over 10 years. And it just felt like the right time to start switching things up. Because one of the things that I have learned over the course of those 10 years is my focus was kind of wide and broad when I started doing this. It was all about life mastery, which of course we're going to continue to talk about here. But then I decided to switch up because I noticed that most of the things that I found to be most important had to do with self-knowing, self-identity. And I mean self with a capital S. And what I have learned for myself over the course of time is that essence, that true essence of who I really am and how I want to bring that into the world. It has a name that I have called MagnifEssence. Now, today we're going to talk about what that really means. But I think, first of all, I need to introduce myself because I didn't do that yet. So my name is David McLeod. I am a certified master life coach, and I am your host for this program. And I'm also the lead author of a brand new book that just got published in October called Gifts of Wisdom, Practices for Healing and Empowerment. And that book, I am so grateful, actually got to be a #1 international best-selling book. So if you haven't already grabbed a copy, head over to Amazon and pick it up. It's called Gifts of Wisdom, Practices for Healing and Empowerment. Now, my guest today is a man I have gotten to know over the last, I think, 3 years when we collaborated on another book together called Find Your Voice, Save Your Life, Find Your Voice, or maybe it's Find Your Voice, Save Your Life. Transcendent Men, real stories. And it was a brilliant book that I just loved. And my guest, Scott Holmes, who is a Reiki master and quantum healer, was the lead author of that book. And I was so delighted, Scott, to get to know you and to get to meet you. And I think we became very fast friends. It was just a really nice connection, which only goes to prove you can make good friends at any time of your life, no matter whether you live in a close proximity to one another or not.
Which we don't.
So yeah, right. Yeah, we live. Well, I live in Idaho, and you live in Massachusetts, right?
Yeah.
Right. So welcome, Scott, and thank you so much for being here to join me for this inaugural episode of MagnifEssence in Motion. And so why don't you say a few words about who you are, what you do, and then we'll take it from there.
Well, this is all about MagnifEssence. I am about a small part in the things that I do with David. I am a Reiki master, polarity therapist, a few other modalities, and writer, author, and blogger with David, and also with Sarah Jane and Gail Nowak. And this is about, we keep coming back to the same things. We expand our knowledge. As David said, he was trying to go wide, and we keep coming back to the same things. And MagnifEssence is about coming back to yourself, about coming inside, about realizing the real you. When I do in my regular practice, is that with people. I bring them back into themselves to let them know who they are. And if for any of you who have tuned into David, you understand that he talks about coming in to yourself. Always, always, always into your heart. And his transformation from who he was to who he is now is all about that journey from head to heart. And it really rings true for most people. Bringing people back into themselves, into their bodies, into their spiritual, emotional centers. That's what this is all about. And he has a way of capturing that speaks to other people.
Well, thank you for that, Scott. I appreciate your acknowledgement and your blessing. And as you were saying that, I was thinking, I didn't really start doing any serious personal growth work until 1995. Can you believe it? It's been 30 years. Maybe that's why this feels like it's such an important year right now to me, you know? And I was 42 years old when I kind of started dabbling into personal growth. And that's what it was. It was dabbling at first. It was, doing a little inspection, it was like dipping my toe in the water in a variety of different pools and trying to see which one I wanted to dive into. And probably it wasn't until 1999 that I started getting more serious about this work. And it was actually Neil Donald Walsh's book, Conversations with God, that finally started me in greater earnest, moving along the path. There was something about his book that just spoke to me on a very deep level. And I knew there was something here that I couldn't quite put my finger on, and I couldn't articulate it back then, but I knew that I had to keep following this path. And so over the course of time, I did a bunch of things. I did a bunch of workshops. I went to seminars. I read a lot of books. I joined men's groups. I did circles with men. I did all kinds of amazing things. But it wasn't until 2003 that I had that major, major, major breakthrough moment. May of 2003. And I think the date might have been actually May 14th. The Saturday in 2003, whatever date that was. But anyway, on that day, I was able, because of the magic of the circle that we had created and the power of the facilitators that were present, I was in a place that I considered safe enough for me to open up completely and just release about 95% of all the gunk that I had been storing inside me for so long. And that release allowed me, for the first time in my life, to have a visceral experience of being connected with all that is. It was the most beautiful, most amazing experience I have ever had. I have been trying very hard over the course of the last, since 2003, to recapture that exact moment. Of course, I haven't been able to get exactly the same, but I've gotten very, very close through the power of meditation and other things. But as Scott was saying, this led me to realize there's something here that I still haven't put my fingers on it, but I knew there's something here. I've got to figure this out, because I want people to have a truth, a path for them to follow, and I want them to experience this kind of visceral oneness, this visceral connection with other people, because it is such an amazing and beautiful experience. And I do believe that ultimately that's what we're all looking for. We just don't know what it is. We don't know how to name it. We don't know how to put our finger on it. And the other thing that I wanted to say is, it took me 30 years to get to the place where I really now understand. I don't think it needs to take that long. Honestly, if you have the mindset and the desire to connect in with your MagnifEssence, your Christ consciousness, whatever you want to call it, you can do it right now. Okay? It's just a question of, what is it you really want in your life? If you're thinking about things outside, I want all this stuff, I want this money, I want this house, I want these people, all these treasures in my life. If that's what you're thinking, you're probably not going to find this true essence, because you're not looking in the right place. Now, I don't know. I'm just rambling here now, Scott. Why don't you rein me in a little bit?
Well, I was just about to, but you're right about that. And people always look outside themselves. My journey is much the same, in that when I turned 50, I started yoga, and yoga was kind of that linchpin that changed how I saw myself. And then from there into meditation, and from there into learning all of the different modalities, starting with Reiki and energy, and understanding it, and just all these light bulbs going off in my brain. And it wasn't until just this past year, on a trip to Peru, that I finally, in the same way that you had that lessening, no matter how much spirituality I did, no matter how much transcendence I did, that I actually let go of all the shit. It wasn't just mine. It was everything that I was carrying. My parents, my grandparents, my ancestral, my past lives, everything just dropped down. And it is the most awakening, light. I feel so much lighter. I don't carry the burden of that anymore. And my life is so much easier. And because of that, I got married. I'm now retiring from full-time work, and I am going to do this work on my terms. And what I found, and what you have expressed many, many times, is we got out of our own way. Wow, how is that? You know, that empowered self-awareness, that understanding of who we were. I asked people, who were you at 6 years old? And they look at me and I said, what did you think you were going to be? What will you do? What were your joys? How did you live life? How did you see life? As a 6-year-old, that just wide-eyed. How do we become so dulled to the everyday experiences? How do we just kind of put our head down and trudge through?
Yeah.
The clients that I'm seeing now and that come to me now, they feel trapped.
Right.
There's a box that they're in and they can't get out of it.
Yeah.
And they want the tools to be able to, how do I get out of this?
Right. Yeah. And it does feel like a trap sometimes, doesn't it? You know, especially when you think about it in terms of, I've got this physical body and it's got limits, you know. If you talk about this idea of being, you know, an unlimited, you know, infinite being, people say, what, you're crazy. This body doesn't give me the freedom to have that. And that's kind of, in a sense, it's true. You know, it's true. You do have that restriction in the body, but that doesn't mean you cannot connect down inside. And I don't know why I say inside. Here's something else that I have said with you before, Scott. For me, the journey from head to heart, you know, it took nearly 30 years. I mean, with little momentary glimpses throughout that time period. But as I bring my attention down from my head and my logical thinking mind into my heart, it sounds like you're going within, and so everything is getting smaller. It kind of feels like that. You're going into this tiny little space in a relatively large body, right? This heart. But the irony here is that that's where expansion actually happens. And if I just close my eyes and allow myself to drop into that heart space, everything just seems vast and unlimited in my mind and in my awareness. Like I can see infinitely far. That it's hard to explain this because unless you've actually had the experience, I still haven't quite found the words to describe it, right? But I think one of the things that I started doing with people need to understand the truth of who they really are. I believe that. And I normally don't use the word need, but I think this is a true statement. The moment we can begin to understand the truth of who we are, that's when life's problems and challenges and everything start to fade away. Because the truth of who I really am is far, far, far greater than anything my mind would allow me to believe. And that's the thing that is so hard for people to get, you know? I mean, I don't know about you, Scott, but what my way now of reconnecting to the truth of who I really am is through deep meditation. Now, you mentioned yoga. I assume you do meditation as well.
I do every morning. First thing I do is get down on my mat for yoga and meditation. And it is that first half hour of the day. And it's the tool that I use to become centered, to be able to come and be able to be present throughout the course of the day.
Right. And so in the course of in the process of doing that, what do you notice that happens with your mind versus your heart?
my mind slows down. All of the have tos, shoulds, all the planning, all the well, I've got to do this and that. All of it just gets very, very quiet. And when I look into my heart, you're right. That expansion is, and when I feel into other people's heart space, there are some that are just absolutely infinite as the universe, and they don't even realize it because it's the capacity for love. It's a capacity. We talk about unconditional love a lot. We talk about love being the strongest force of the universe, and it is, and it's just in that heart space, and just amazing the way that when you're in it, how you view your life and everything and everyone around you differently. And when you can come from that, your how you react, how you interact, how you connect changes entirely.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And folks, I want to thank those of you who are here on the live show. I see Denise and Douglas here. Thank you for being here. If you'd like to share your comments or questions or anything, please post them in the chat and we'll do our best to respond to those as we go. The other thing I'd like to mention, folks, is this idea of MagnifEssence is something that I have been dealing with for quite a few years, and I've been trying to figure out how to integrate it into my life. And I actually created a website called MagnifEssence.com. I'm just posting the link in the chat there, so you can go and check it out. It is I call it a life mastery school. I mean, there's lots of great stuff there on that website. If you'd like to sign up for a membership, you can do that. And by the way, I have some special deals going on this month. So I'm going to share those codes with you right now. Let me just put this down. This is the code that you can use if you want to sign up for just any membership, any paid membership. That's a code that everybody else is finding out about. But for people who are on this show today, I have another special code. If you want to sign up for my platinum membership is an additional 10% off. So there you go. You can check those out. If you decide that you want to sign up, use one of those codes in the checkout form. But the first one, the membership Jan 25, is for 30% off any membership, any paid membership. And the platinum Jan 25 is for an extra 10% off. So 40% off if you decide to go for the platinum plan. Anyway, I just want to let you know about that. And maybe I'll talk a little bit about that website later. But speaking of MagnifEssence, Scott, you and I have talked about this already, and I know that you have a pretty interesting perspective on what MagnifEssence means. Can you maybe describe in your unique way what it means to you?
Yes, it's always unique, isn't it? The essence of who we are, how magnificent it is. People don't see themselves as other people see them. When you look in the mirror, we all have that judge sitting right here saying, you're getting your crow's feet. It looks so good today. You need a haircut. You just don't look right. When we connect with people, the outward appearance drops away and we're dealing heart to heart and we see them for who they are. When I look in the mirror, the first thing you see is you see your face, you're shaving in the morning and it's like, you don't look so good. You didn't get enough sleep. You got these bags under your eyes. But when we connect with people, and I think everyone can really connect with this, is we're dealing with them and who they are. Yes, they might have a different dress on or a different suit on or whatever else, but the person they are stays the same. And we see them as that. And what I've often thought is to be able to hold up the mirror as you see them. That I always have trouble with this, David. MagnifEssence. It is a turn of word that really means magnifying the essence within you and showing it how magnificent it is. We don't use that word very often, magnificent. But travel to Europe, and there were churches that were just simply magnificent. What does that mean? It was huge. The architecture was amazing. The artwork was extraordinary. And each one of us has that within ourselves. And I know that through this program, and if you listen, we will allow you to see that within yourself.
Right. Yeah. I like that. So here's what I have learned for myself as I have gotten clearer about who I really am. And the way I did that, by the way, and this anybody can do this. This is a simple little process you can do for yourself. Just sit in front of a mirror and just look at your reflection and just ask, who am I? And then just wait for an answer. Don't judge it or anything, just wait for an answer. Now, I've done this with myself many, many times, and I've also done it in pairs with other people many, many times. And every time I'm always surprised at some of the answers that I come up with. I'm certainly surprised at some of the answers other people come up with. But I know that when I first started doing this, I would begin with, who are you? Well, I'm David. Thank you. Who are you? I'm a man. Thank you. Who are you? I'm a poet. Thank you. Who are you? And you see what's happening here is my mind is answering the questions at first. My mind is answering with all of the qualities, characteristics, roles, emotions, and everything else that I've ever experienced in my life. I'm responding with my experiences. I'm basically building a list of human doings, right? But after a while, the more these questions get asked, the more frequently I just give myself a moment to think. Then I get down deeper and I say, I am energy. Thank you. And who are you? I am love. Thank you. And who are you? And I just keep going. Just keep going. It is a powerful, powerful process that you can do with another person. One person asking the question and being as non-judgmental as possible with the answer. And then the other person answering the question, just noticing what's true in the moment and just saying, this is who I am in right now. And then the other person responding, thank you, with genuine gratitude for that statement, but without any judgment, right? Now, the idea here is not to get into story. Oh, I'm the guy who takes care of the kids at school on a Thursday afternoon between 3 and... No, we don't want that. You might respond with, I'm a caretaker. I protect children, or something like that. You see, the idea is to keep it as short as possible. No story. Anyway, if you do that long enough, eventually you're going to get to a point where you're going to be saying, I don't know. Or you might say, I am nothing. Or you might say, I am everything. This is when you're starting to get down to the nugget of truth, right? You're starting to get down into what I now call the unfurled lotus. Okay? And it's a powerful, powerful place to be where you begin to understand that, I'm not my name, I'm not my roles I play, I'm not all the experiences that I've had. I am far, far, far more than that. Because those are just things that happened in the course of my life as a result of who I really am. And who am I? Well, now my answer is, I am a divine, magnificent, unlimited, sovereign, spiritual being of light and love. And I just happen to be having this temporary human experience along with the rest of you. And that, to me, that phrase, a divine, magnificent, unlimited, sovereign, spiritual being of light and love, to me, that is MagnifEssence. And I believe it's what all of us are if we give ourselves a chance to deepen from our head down into our heart and find that beautiful lotus flower that's within us. And then just unfurl it, let it unfold and reveal that beautiful golden blue, whatever color it is for you, flower of that gem of magnificent beauty. That's what it is to me.
How has that changed you? How has that understanding changed you?
So now he's coaching me here. This is great. How has that understanding changed me? Okay. Once I got to the truth of who I am, it made it easy for me to recognize that that same truth is it's a universal truth for all beings everywhere, because we are all connected through divine energy. We're all part of that same fabric. And so even if I see someone doing something that might be not exactly life affirming, I know that deep down inside there is this gem, this beautiful golden blue gem of wisdom and magnificence inside that person, and they're struggling to find it. So it makes it easier for me then to have compassion for people, makes it easier for me to forgive people, even some of the most egregious behavior. It makes it easier for me to acknowledge that whatever I see someone else doing that I have judgment about is probably an aspect of me that I don't want to acknowledge. That's what all of this helps me to do.
So in MagnifEssence, we have the rediscovery of yourself. And through that, we are empowered to live present with that knowledge of who we are and with that love. And through that, we heal through forgiveness, through love, and constantly integrating all of that back in. And the clearer we get, the more centered we get, the more even we get, the better we can make decisions about our life, whether it be long-term or short-term, the better decisions we make about relationships, about interconnected, who in our circle we should keep and who should not be in our circle anymore.
Right.
But it also connects us to the universal energy. Excuse me. Overall. And you said, excuse me, a being of light. And as a being of light, we are connected with everyone. And we vibrate at a much higher state. And when we do that and we connect with people at that state, our higher vibrational state, there's an awakening more and more and more. That consciousness, that understanding of who we are, where we are, that we've lived many lives, that we may not have even have lived on this planet at any time, at one time in our past. And that just blows everything out of the water. All of a sudden we see things in life that's in front of us much, much differently.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I just wanted to acknowledge Denise's comment. She says, I love this term MagnifEssence and the clarity around the term that you have both provided. I'm also intrigued by the similar journeys we have taken to get to this realization. I feel like you are both a bit further along than I am. I have been a chronic head dweller for decades. I like that. I finally feel ready to move to a more heart-centered focus. Well, that's beautiful, Denise, and thank you for your honesty on that. I don't think that I don't like to compare myself to anybody else. Whenever I remember this. I think I've shared this story with you before, Scott. I'm not sure if I've shared it with Denise, but I remember when I was a kid in kindergarten, and I was, I remember kindergarten. That was like my first day of school, and I hated it. I didn't like it at all. But I noticed that I was looking across the yard and I see all these first graders. And I was thinking, oh my God, how advanced they are. Look at them. They're so smart. They're so far ahead of me. They're so amazing. And of course, at the end of the year, I graduated and became a first grader. So then the next year, here I am in the play yard looking out, and I'm looking out and I'm seeing all the second graders. And my mind's going through that same thing. Oh, look how amazing they are. Look how far advanced they are, and blah, blah, blah. But then I just happened to look back the other way. And I saw some of the kindergartners, and I thought, oh yeah, that's where I was last year. I hope that kid's feeling okay. Maybe I can give him a little bit of help to get over here. That's when I realized we're all on this path. We're just at different points along the path. That's all. And there's no right place on the path. Oh, well, actually, the right place is where you are right now. That's what I would say. But yeah, you can look ahead and you can say, yep, there's someone up there who can help me. And there's someone back there that I can help. So wherever you are on your journey, remember that you are always, I hope, looking for the next step for yourself while simultaneously supporting the people behind you, even though they're not really behind at all. So that's all I want to say about that.
So it's really you become a catalyst for others to take the next step.
That's right.
And in that way, you change their understanding, you change their knowledge, but you also change their perspective.
Right.
And when you can see things from a different perspective than where you are, all of a sudden things look a little bit different.
Yeah.
It's like the story of the three blind men and the elephant, touching different parts of the elephant. Although it's part of the same thing, they came away with very different understanding of what they were touching and seeing and experiencing.
Right.
But the way to do that when you change your perspective is through creation, through art. What I found is that most people, when they're young, when you're 6, 7, 8, 10, you want to be an artist, you want to sing, you want to dance, you want to do all of those things. And as we get older, we're told, oh, you're not so good at that. Oh,
right.
I should stop doing that. I look funny when I dance. I can't sing. You know, my voice is changing. I'm 13 years old. My voice is changing. I can't sing anymore. I often say that I carry a tune in a paper bag. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't carry it. And I was a soprano in the church choir, of course. But all of those things, that there is a creative part of us that needs expression, whether it's writing, speaking, painting, knitting, some creation. And that brings joy. And I think the basis of all this, unconditional love, is living in joy, living in that state of mindful living, of being and doing what brings us that satisfaction, that understanding, that joy in life. If you're living a joyous life, man, it doesn't matter what comes down at you. You know, you get into a fender bender. It's like, nobody was hurt. We're good. It's just the car. Okay. My furnace just went off and it's cold. Okay, well, we'll go next door to the neighbors and we'll get it fixed. Okay, everything's good. But when you are that centered, it's not chaos. It's not overwhelming. It's not, I can't handle this. It's just part of life.
Yeah.
And that perspective changes how you view things, how you connect with people, how you react to people, how your emotions come up.
Well, I haven't reached your stage of enlightenment where I can just brush off a fender bender or a broken furnace quite that easily. My ego mind still decides that it has to have its own reaction when something like that goes, because, hey, something's out of control. Something's out of my control, you know? And so I want to make sure that people understand that you don't have to react like a saint at every situation that happens. All right. No. Just be true to who you are. And if you find yourself behaving in a way that you don't like, then make amends for it after the fact. Try and put a stop to it. Try and regain control, regain your center, and then be gentle with yourself. You know, that's what I do now. I say, oh yeah, I still got that ego mind that hasn't quite gone away yet, you know?
Hey, trust me. I'm not always that way. If you've ever driven with me and if you've ever driven up here in Boston, you'll understand that the expletives that come out of my mouth while I'm driving means that I'm not necessarily always that way.
Right. I know. And I just want to make sure that we're human beings still, even though
Lord, yes.
We have done all this work to try and elevate ourselves and stuff. We still have our foibles. We still have our idiosyncrasies. And that's just the way it is. I mean, I don't know of anybody, even Jesus had his moment Remember what he did to the changing tables or whatever they called those things. You know, he flipped them up. He got all upset, and people justify that saying, well, it's righteous anger. Well, come on. I can claim that my anger is righteous and then suddenly make myself a Christ figure if I want to. But the truth is, sometimes I get angry. Sometimes I get angry, and sometimes that anger happens so fast that I don't have a chance to really control it. Right? And so it might come out in a way that is potentially harmful to people. All I can do at that point is kind of rein myself in, regain control, and then make amends for the behavior that I allowed myself. I gave myself permission unconsciously to engage in. This is what awareness is about. It's not about always having the right answers. It's not about always being the perfect, centered, whatever, saint. And that's to me what MagnifEssence is all about. I know the truth of who I really am. And when I see myself behave in ways that really don't feel good, then I know I'm kind of out of integrity with my true self. And it's my responsibility, if I choose to remain in integrity, to deal with the fallout and take responsibility for my actions. That's really all I can do, right?
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Honestly, you really nailed it. Because when we talk about it, it's about self-inquiry, right? It's about, oh geez, why did I get so upset about that? Okay, why did I react that way? Or taking a breath, knowing that it's coming up, because I do that all the time, where that emotion comes up and I go, okay, I used to speak and then think about what I was saying. That's really a calamity. So I take a breath, think about what I'm going to say, then speak it. And sometimes I just tell myself to shut up, because that's the best. That's the best course of action.
Right. Right. And so that's why this whole program is called MagnifEssence in Motion. You know, it's not about being stationary. It's not about being in one place all the time. MagnifEssence is your essence, and it is in motion. And my objective with this program is to help you bring it more frequently to the fore, so that the less desirable kinds of behaviors that you might engage in don't happen as often. And when they do happen, you have better control over them, and you are able to be gentle and loving and forgiving with yourself. That's really what this is all about. And the more you can do that for yourself, the more you can do that for other people. How much would this world change if we could all learn to just forgive everything all the time? Can you imagine? We see horrible things happening in our world, and of course we want to judge them, we want to hate them, we want to destroy things that damage our world. But aren't we just engaging in the same energy when we do that? It's like putting, gasoline on a fire to try and put it out. It's
so how do we get to that point, David? And I think we've talked about this a lot. It's about embodiment practices, right, whether it's yoga or dance or breath work, to kind of ground ourselves into our bodies, to be able to bring it. And after we do that, the energetic work of the clearing, balance, I do a lot of chakra work, and to be able to align all of those, to be able to make sure that they're functioning at a high level. That's the energy work. I'm an energetic light worker. I work with white light. I work with getting all those balanced. And then the forgiveness, the releasing and let it go. That's okay. That for me was really, and it's an ongoing battle that I have with me, is the letting go. I truly wanted to be in control. I thought I was in control till I realized I was in control of absolutely nothing.
right. Yeah.
And that's why when we were talking about it, why I have less reaction now because I realize I don't have control. And being able to have the understanding and the intention of, let's see what it brings. Let's see. That just understanding, that perspective of, okay, let's see how this plays. I don't have to necessarily get in the middle of it in order to fix it. And I'm realizing I don't have to, I can't fix the world. I can only present myself to the world as I am.
Right.
And hope that is a good enough gift that I bring to other people.
And of course, it is a good enough gift. That's the one thing that you must be willing to say. This is good enough. And just because it's good enough now doesn't mean there isn't room for improvement. Okay? It doesn't mean that there are new opportunities ahead of you. Saying that was one of my biggest challenges as I was going through my personal growth work was struggling with shame about not being good enough. And it took me a while to unload that, but eventually I came to a realization, no matter what I do, it's always good enough. No matter who I am, I'm always good enough. And at the same time, good enough gives me permission to look for ways of improving. So it's really, really important to be gentle with ourselves, right? 100% of our judgment all comes from up here in our ego mind. That's all it is. It's just ego mind chatter. And so the challenge, you asked, how do we get to this place of that centering and stuff? Well, you talked about the 7 chakras, or I know that there's 7 chakras in the body, but I assume that there's many more chakras than that extend out beyond the physical body. And I'm sure you work with those ones too. But not everybody knows about these chakras, and not everybody understands what that really means. So one thing I can suggest to people, all you really have to do is allow, and I'm not going to say quiet your ego mind. I'm going to say allow your ego mind to go quiet on its own. And the way you do that, or the way I do it, it might work for you. I remember when I first started meditating, I got so frustrated and angry with myself because I just couldn't stop my mind from chattering. And it wasn't until one day I realized that I was just exacerbating the problem by judging myself for judging myself.
Yeah.
And so I realized that's not going to work. That's the gasoline on the fire kind of reaction. And I said, okay, what can I do instead? Then I thought, my ego mind is trying to tell me something, so maybe I should listen to it. So I started doing that. I started listening to my ego mind. What is it trying to say to me? And after a while, I began to notice, my ego mind sounds an awful lot like me when I was 3 or 4 or 5 years old. It's whiny, it's complainy, it always wants something. And notice I use that word, whiny and complainy. That was my judgment of my little boy. See, I had to become aware of that. Once I became aware of that, I said, yeah, no wonder. So now I'm just going to stop and listen, and I'm going to say, sounds like you've got some challenges going on here. Let me just be here and hear what you have to say. And guess what? It started to quiet down on its own. It doesn't take very long. So when you are trying to meditate and you notice that you have a lot of thoughts, maybe some judgments, maybe some criticisms about yourself, just notice them and say, thank you for that thought. That's very interesting. And then just let it go.
Isn't it amazing what gratitude?
Yeah, right.
And that, what gratitude brings to you. Long ago and far away, I was in my 30s, and I went to a psychologist. I was having all kinds of problems just understanding where my life was, what I was, how I was a failure, how I couldn't match it, how I wasn't worthy of anything. He suggested Al-Anon. I walk into my
Oh.
first Al-Anon meeting.
So just say, remind us what Al-Anon is.
Al-Anon is related to Alcoholics Anonymous, but it's when you have alcoholism within your family, the dysfunction of alcohol within your family. And Al-Anon is same 12-step program, but it's for those dealing with all of that and what it means to be in that dysfunction. And I walk in the door, and the first thing they said is, talked about gratitude. And at that moment in my life, I could not think of 3 things that I was grateful for. I could not. I had a family, I had a job, I had all of these things, and I had nothing that I could be grateful for. So for me, gratitude in its truest form changed my life, because I learned to go to bed and be thankful for the day and everything and everyone in it. And when I woke up, I was grateful for the ability to wake up, knowing that some people didn't wake up that day, that the opportunity that the day would bring. And just that gratitude, how it changed my perspective. And we talk about the different tools that we have, and there are a slew of them, and we could spend an hour just kind of naming all different kind of tools that people can use. But it's that MagnifEssence is that call to our higher self to be able to heal that 7-year-old, that 12-year-old, that 19-year-old self that we are not anymore. Those emotions speak through that 12-year-old, right? If we acted like a 12-year-old in a 60-year-old body, it's not going to go very well, unfortunately. But it's the emotion and how we see it. And what I found is that the way we heal all of those emotions is by giving it attention, but also giving it love or freedom or whatever, or taking the shame away from what we did when we were that age. And understanding, hey, we did the best we could with what we had at that moment.
That's right.
We didn't have all the tools we have now. We didn't have all the life experience. We didn't know. We didn't understand. We didn't have this perspective. We were dumb kids. Okay. But that doesn't mean we have to stay within that 8-year-old self that comes up and is a whiny baby. No. They're whiny because they need something. And when we give them that, all of a sudden it just quiets right down. And that is a lot of, for those people who have those voices and those emotions that come up, my goodness, that is a tool that can be used. One of those things you can find within the practices within MagnifEssence.
Yeah, well, that's beautiful, Scott. Thank you for bringing that up. And I just wanted to say what I was getting at with my talk about the ego mind and how it was getting in the way and it slowed me down. When I discovered that little trick of just listening to the ego mind without judgment and without necessarily engaging what it had to say, just listening, and as you say, even having some gratitude for whatever thoughts the ego mind had, the more I did that, the quieter my ego mind got. And then eventually there was a point where I thought, wow, this is what silence feels like. And that made it so easy then to get down into my heart and just be there. And I now have reached a point where I can just say to my ego mind, okay, I want to meditate now. I know you've got some things to say. If there's nothing super important that I need to be aware of right now, I want to just kind of descend into my heart and be there for a while. Then we can talk later or whatever. Just by acknowledging my ego mind now, it's getting quieter so much more quickly, and I can descend into that beautiful unfurled lotus space that I was talking about before. Now, there's something else I wanted to say, and you mentioned this at the beginning. When you're dealing with some of your clients, asking them, what did you want to do when you were 5 years old or 6 years old? What was it? And you say they get so wide-eyed. I want to come back to that, because when we're first born into this world, we are we are completely connected to our true MagnifEssence in that moment when we were born. But what happens is the conditioning begins from all of the outside external sources, our parents, our grandparents, our brothers and sisters. Everybody is trying to shape us and tell us what this world is, even though we already know the truth of who we really are. And so we go through a process of conditioning that actually reshapes our perspective of who we might have thought we were before and changes it, minimizes it, just kind of makes it smaller. And so, and then we go through all these experiences like Scott mentioned a while ago. Oh, you can't sing. You have a lousy voice or whatever. And so you don't sing anymore, or you don't draw anymore, or you stop doing something. Just think, I mean, if everybody listened to this story, you have a lousy singing voice, then we would never have had Bob Dylan, Johnny Cash, Leonard Cohen. I mean, these guys have their own unique voice. I wouldn't classify them as singers per se, but they certainly had amazing songwriting skills, and they had a persona that we wouldn't have had if not for their gravelly voices. So maybe your voice is kind of like that. Maybe you've got a voice or a perspective that is different from everybody else. Share it. Bring it on. Connect in to the truth of who you really are and let that shine forth, and stop being afraid to share the truth of who you really are.
And finding voice is what it's all about. How through our voice we show the world who we are. So however you show that, whether it's you go on TikTok, or you write in a journal, or you do work in hospice, or you do whatever it is that you do, and how you express yourself through your voice, that's finding it. And David, I think I'd really like to have you talk about how they can find it through MagnifEssence.
Sure. Well, I guess the first thing I wanted to say before I even go there, we talk about finding your voice. Another way of saying this is finding your way to express your true essence, no matter what it is you do. If you happen to be a stockbroker, you can still do that from a place of MagnifEssence. You may choose at some point to say, this stockbroking thing isn't exactly what I want anymore. Fine. But don't stop doing it just because you're connecting into your MagnifEssence. Or maybe you're a veterinarian. Well, you probably already have a pretty good connection to your MagnifEssence anyway, because you're dealing with animals and you already know how amazing animals are. But not everybody who gets into a particular job is doing it because they have that altruistic sense. Sometimes they're doing it because their mommy and daddy said so. How many lawyers are there out there because daddy was a lawyer? How many doctors are there out there because daddy was a doctor or mommy was a doctor? If you are doing something that isn't really completely fulfilling, my invitation is to find a way to fulfill yourself first, continue doing what you're doing, and bring that essence into what you're doing and see what shifts. You may discover that, okay, this isn't really what I'm called to do. Maybe I am called to do something else. Fine. But don't just drop everything because you want to be truly connected to your MagnifEssence. All right? So, Scott, you asked how we can do this. Well, there's lots of ways. First of all, both Scott and I are here to support you one-on-one if you would like that kind of support. But you can also go to my website at MagnifEssence.com. I've already put the link there on the chat. There's all kinds of streams there that you can sign up for. There's courses that you can sign up for. And of course, there's also the one-on-one coaching and other stuff that you can get from me and from Scott. So I just want you to be aware of that. And as I also mentioned, I've got a membership discount going on right now. All my memberships on the MagnifEssence site are 30% off if you use the membership-Jan-25 coupon code. That's also in the chat. But again, for people who are on this program today, This is a special offer only for you. It's not being published anywhere else. Platinum-Jan-25. If you decide you want to sign up for the Platinum program, it's 40% off. So an extra 10%. Now you can find more details at the website. Find out for yourself if it's a right fit for you, and if you'd like to join. And by the way, there is a free option there. My bronze membership is free. You can get access to one stream, and you can also get access to my blog posts and all the other stuff, which at the moment there aren't any. This will be the first one as of today. So anyway, I just wanted to tell you about that. And Scott, what other beautiful, amazing, fantastic, enlightened words of wisdom, no pressure, do you have for us now?
The meaning of life just goes to prove that we do not have to climb the mountain to find the monk that's sitting there in a robe to tell us what the meaning of life is. That was always you have to go to Tibet and you have to climb the mountain to be able to find that. And I think what David and I are both saying is that in the Western mind, it's always climbing outside of yourself. That higher spirituality is always outside of ourselves. It's something we have to attain. But in reality, it's the journey inward. It is finding out here who you are. The meaning of life, everybody can describe it differently. But for you, only you can describe it for yourself. And to be able to quiet all of the externals, to be able to come and understand and remember the remembering of who you are, who you were when you came into this life, who you were meant to be when you were put in this earth. That is the true meaning of life. And in that, you will find the joy of life, joy of living, the understanding of who you are and the world you're living in, and being part of the collective, and being such a positive influence on everyone around you as it ripples outward. Because we are all part of the collective. We are all part of the all. Our energy is there. When we plug into it, it's magnificent.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you, Scott. And I just wanted to add to that, because we do in our Western mind have this idea that we have to go to the mountain out there. But really, the mountain is in here. And the guru you're searching for is on top of this mountain in here. Really, that's the truth. And the other truth is that you'll discover that guru is you. You might not want to accept that as a truth right now, but believe me, that's where the actual wisdom comes from. It comes from within, and we're all connected to it. As Scott said, we're part of the all. We are all one. It's not just a bumper sticker, So I invite you all to just kind of embrace that and take that into your life for this new year and for all of your life. Because that's what we're all here to do, right? Is to remember the truth of who we are. So thank you all for being here today. Thank you, Scott, for joining me. I really appreciate it. It's always great having a conversation with you. And one thing I'd like to remind people, there's a special mantra that came to me years ago that I call the Life Mastery Mantra. And I want to continue that, because it's a beautiful way of remembering how to love myself. Okay, it goes like this. It's just 3 simple phrases. I gratefully forgive the imperfect being I have been in the past. I gratefully accept the magnificent being I am right now. I gratefully welcome the evolved being I am becoming in each new moment. Well, until next time, I am David McLeod, your Life Mastery Coach, and I'm wishing you love, light, and blessings on your continuing journey. I'll see you next time on MagnifEssence in Motion. Bye-bye.